नमस्कार। राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति 2020 के क्रियान्वयन के लिए आयोजित इस 6 दिवसीय कार्यक्रम में आप सभी का स्वागत है। Welcome to this 6-day program on the professional development of teachers of colleges and universities for the implementation of the National Education Policy 2020. This program is being conducted by the Indira Gandhi National Open University and is equivalent to the UGC HRDC program. As you are well aware, this program is being conducted through the LMS, and we have provided a range of topics for you through the e-content. You will find modules with 14 units as well as many videos which you can see at your own convenience in your own time. They will also be available subsequently on YouTube. There will also be an opportunity for you to present your views and ideas to the discussion forum. At the end of the program, there will be an assignment and there will be assessment. This batch is the second batch. आप सभी दूसरे बैच में हैं। इससे पहले एक बैच पहले भी हो चुका है और उस बैच में लगभग 6000 टीचर्स ने भाग लिया है। अभी इस बैच में लगभग 9000 टीचर्स हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं। हमारा प्रयास ये रहेगा कि हम राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति के बारे में आपको बताएं। उसके अंदर जो टॉपिक्स हैं, चाहे वो मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी एजुकेशन हो, होलिस्टिक एजुकेशन हो, GR के बारे में बातें हों, और इफ़ दे आर रिलेटेड टू वोकेशनल एजुकेशन, स्किलिंग, एकेडमिक बैंक ऑफ क्रेडिट, ये सभी विषय इस कार्यक्रम में कहीं ना कहीं आपको मिलेंगे। प्रयास ये रहेगा कि किसी तरह से द नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी कैन बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड ऑन द ग्राउंड लेवल। टुडे टू टॉक अबाउट ऑल दीज टॉपिक्स एंड अदर्स and especially about skilling in vocational education, I am pleased to have with me Dr. Shrikant Mohapatra ji, who is our Pro Vice Chancellor at the Indira Gandhi National Open University. Dr. Shrikant Mohapatra ji has been the founder, Vice Chancellor of the State Open University of Odisha. He has served there as 2 terms. He has also been Controller of Examinations at the Sikkim University. At IGNOU, he has served in many high positions, including that of Director Regional Services Division, Electronic Media Production Center, as well as Registrar of the Student Evaluation Division. He is also looking after skilling at the national level on behalf of IGNOU, and I will request him to take this session on perhaps reimagining vocational education, or in case you have any other questions to ask related to the national education policy, he would be the best person to answer them. आप किसी भी विषय पे अपने जो प्रश्न आप पूछना चाहते हैं, आप चैट बॉक्स में उसे लिखिए और हम उसका उत्तर देने का प्रयास करेंगे। So I request you to take forward this session.
Recommendations on the National Education Policy 2020. This policy has given us lot of ideas, lot of thoughts on many aspects of higher education, be it on quality of higher education, access, equity, inclusion in higher education. It has talked about holistic, multidisciplinary higher education. It talks about reimagining vocational education and skill education, making skill education a part of the higher education. It talks about leadership and governance aspect in higher education. Talks about teachers education. Talks about technology integration in higher education and online digital medium of teaching and learning. The policy tells us that the earlier higher education system in India was too much fragmented. There are several kinds of higher educational institutions. At the university level, we had various nomenclatures of universities. Public universities, private universities, technical universities, health universities, law universities, agriculture universities, so on and so forth, deemed universities, affiliating universities, unitary universities, and there are many other nomenclatures. Similarly, also, when you come to the college, we have government colleges, we have private colleges, we have constituent colleges, we have affiliated colleges, and there are many nomenclatures. So the policy talks about one holistic higher education system in the country. The higher educational institutions have been defined as multidisciplinary institutions providing holistic education, skill-based education, value-based education by using different pedagogy. It may be face-to-face, it may be open and distance learning, and it may be online. So this is something which is new in the National Education Policy 2020. National Education Policy also talks about universities which are research intensive, universities which are teaching intensive, autonomous degree awarding colleges, and constituent colleges. And it says that the system of having affiliated colleges or affiliation of colleges to the university should be done away with. So तीन तरह का विश्वविद्यालय, दो विश्वविद्यालय है, एक research intensive where research will be given maximum emphasis but teaching would continue, a teaching intensive university where teaching will be the primary activity but research will be also undertaken by the faculty, and degree awarding autonomous colleges. These autonomous colleges in the present system have no power to award the degree. Degree can only be awarded by the university. So this education policy 2020 says that autonomous colleges will also be degree awarding institutions. And then there will be constituent colleges. These colleges will be owned by the universities, they will not be affiliated to the university. So this is one major departure from the existing policy. It says that multidisciplinarity has not been encouraged in the previous education policy. Previous education policy at best has talked about interdisciplinary studies, but the present policy talks about multidisciplinary studies. Multidisciplinary means across disciplines, beyond discipline, and across different streams. We normally say science, arts, commerce, these are streams. And within science we have physics, chemistry, botany, geology, maybe geography. In arts, we have political science, history, sociology, public administration. In humanities, we have English, regional languages, Hindi, Sanskrit, so on and so forth. So, interdisciplinary studies within a stream was earlier encouraged. Now it talks about going beyond the stream. So can we have an integration of STEM, that is science, STEM, science, technology, mathematics, engineering, getting integrated with social science, humanities, and skill education. So it will become a multidisciplinary study. And it also says that skill shall become an integral part of the higher education system. Earlier, skill was not mainstreamed into the higher education. Of course, with the introduction of choice-based credit system by the UGC, skill component has been integrated, but then the weightage that needs to be assigned to skill education has not been given. So the present policy, that is National Education Policy 2020, also emphasizes on integrating skill education with the mainstream education. Of course, we'll be discussing about that in detail. Then it says optimal learning environment. It's a new thing which has also come up with the National Education Policy 2020. And when we say optimal learning environment, it implies curriculum, pedagogy, student support, and assessment methods. When we talk about curriculum will be multidisciplinary, skill-based, value-based, and when we say value-based, it should be human values, constitutional values, and so on and so forth. So the curriculum will be holistic, multidisciplinary, skill-based and value-based. Pedagogy will be face-to-face. It will be open and distance learning. It will be online. And it can be a combination of both, which the National Education Policy 2020 talks about blended learning. So blended learning can be blending of face-to-face with online. Blended learning can be blending of open and distance learning with online. So it talks about blended learning in terms of pedagogy. And student support, the third vertical or the parameter of optimal learning environment as per the National Education Policy 2020 is student support. And when we say student support, it means access, equity, inclusion without compromising on quality, affordable education for the large segments of the people, particularly the disadvantaged groups, because it talks about socially and economically disadvantaged groups are to be mainstreamed into higher education, and access to education shall be provided to all segments of the society. And special incentives, scholarships, extra classes, breeze courses shall be provided to people who are slow learners, who cannot cope up with the mainstream education. So extra learner support is required. That is the third pillar of optimal learning environment. And the fourth pillar of optimal learning environment is assessment. It says innovative method of assessment. Earlier, our emphasis was on annual examination, end term examination, end semester examination, or summative assessment. This education policy says that high-stake examination needs to be avoided. Examination should be continuous, comprehensive, formative, so that continuously students' performance will be assessed. Our examination system has promoted rote learning or mugging up things or a tuition culture. So these needs to be thrown out. This needs to be stopped. The learning outcome and the graduate attributes are to be assessed in terms of performance of the student through formative assessment process. So something which is very innovative and new that the National Education Policy has thrown light upon. And other than this, the policy also talks about a 4-year bachelor degree program and a 1-year master degree program. It says that the 3-year bachelor degree program with 2 years master degree program will continue, but ultimately it will be a 4 years master degree program with 1 year, 4-year bachelor degree program with 1 year master degree program with provision for multiple entry and multiple exit. That means after completion of first year of study, successful completion of first year of study, one can take an undergraduate diploma and join as a workforce or get a job, and then after a few years time one can re-enter the higher education, and similarly after completion of 2 years one can get an undergraduate diploma. First year is undergraduate certificate, second year is undergraduate diploma, and if it is a 3 years degree program, one will go get a degree, bachelor degree, and 4 years one will get either an honors degree or an undergraduate research degree. Those who get a undergraduate research degree will ultimately go to further research. But those who have done 4 years bachelor degree will take 1 year to complete the master degree program. So this is something which is quite innovative. And also, before I go to the vocational education part, I would also like to highlight that it talks about structural reforms or institutional reforms, in the sense that it talks about a Higher Education Council of India, which will be the highest authority for all kinds of higher education. And under the Higher Education Council of India, it has advocated different pillars or structures. That is Higher Education Regulatory Council, Higher Education Grant Council, National Assessment Council for Assessment and Accreditation, and it also talks about a General Education Council for setting standards, maintaining quality, preparing guidelines for credit transfer or multiple entry or multiple exit. So it talks about a whole lot of structural reforms or institutional reforms in higher education. Having said that, my emphasis today will be on reimagining vocational education as per the National Education Policy 2020. All of us know that India has the largest youth population in the world. It is almost 65% of the Indian population who are in the age group of 30 years or below, and almost 800 million people in India, or 80 crore people in India, belong to the category of youth below 35 years. But it is a paradox, it is an irony that only 5% of the Indian population have got vocational education. And when we compare this 5% of Indian students getting vocational education with that of other countries, will be surprised. Say for instance, a country like China has 25% people having vocational education. United States of America almost 50%. Around 55% is United Kingdom. 70% and more is Germany. 80% people in Japan having vocational education. And a country like Korea, South Korea, the number of people having exposure to vocational education is 96%. Now, 96% in South Korea and 5% in India is something very, very surprising. And why it is so? It is so because the policy says that there are several reasons. One is that there is no definite career path from vocational stream to higher education or mainstream higher education. If you are studying vocational education at 10th, 11th, 12th, then further vocational education is not possible. You may go for a diploma in a polytechnic or a ITI. For mainstream higher education, there is no career path for vocational education. The second thing is, the general perception in our mind is that if you are very good in your studies, you will go for mainstream education. If you are not very good in your studies and if you are not getting a seat in higher education or higher educational institutions, then you go for vocational education. So those who are studying vocational education, they are looked down upon, that they are inferior, that vocational education is inferior to the mainstream education or general education. Now, this perception, this attitude towards vocational education has not really promoted vocational education in our country, and that is the reason why only 5% of the people of India have got vocational training. And the National Education Policy 2020 says that this needs to be changed, because we are now formulating a national curriculum framework under the National Education Policy 2020. It envisages that exposure to vocational education should start from the middle level of school education. And when it goes to the secondary level of school education, vocational education should become a part of the curriculum, because the National Education Policy says that there is no difference between curriculum, co-curriculum and extracurriculum. So, curricular activities, co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities will be treated as one and will be treated at par under the National Education Policy. So, therefore, physical education, skill education, education in art and craft will be mainstreamed and will become a part of the school education at the secondary level and onwards. And it also says that it will also become a part of the higher education. That is the reason why we said from the beginning that our higher education will be holistic, multidisciplinary, skill-based and value-based. So skill education will become an integral part of the higher education system as per the National Education Policy 2020. So vocational stream will be mainstreamed in the higher education system. Earlier what was happening is, if you are doing a bachelor degree in art, science or commerce, then you are not getting the kind of exposure to skill education which normally a student in engineering or in medicine or in law is getting. So now all kinds of education will become multidisciplinary. There will be no single teachers college or teachers university, law university, agriculture university. Every university will become multidisciplinary and will provide holistic education. And so also the general universities will promote holistic, multidisciplinary, skill-based education. So mainstreaming of skill education or vocational education at the school level and at the higher education level is one of the major recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020. And it also says that 21st century skills, that is skill like communication skills, these are employable skills, which gives you employment. Communication skills, decision-making skills, leadership skills, problem-solving skills, time management skills. These skills are 21st century skills, and these are required in all kinds of employment. And therefore, it should also become an integral part of the holistic, multidisciplinary, skill-based, value-based education. So 21st century skills will be integrated, and the main skill, that is skill, knowledge in the field of, in different domains. We have almost 38 sector skill council in India, which are working under the National Skill Development Corporation, and all these are working under the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. So there are 38 different branches, whether it is IT sector, whether it is banking sector, whether it is financial sector, whether it is healthcare sector or agriculture sector or tourism sector, these are various sectors of our economy. So in every sector, certain skill sets, NOS, National Occupational Standards or Occupational Pacts, OPs, have been identified. And all these will be mainstreamed and will become part of the higher education system. So therefore, the National Education Policy for the first time says that the NSQF, National Skill Qualification Framework, will sync or will align with the National Higher Education Qualification Framework. So National Skill Qualification Framework has been framed to provide opportunities for upward mobility from vocational education to higher education. Now the new policy says, or the National Education Policy 2020 says, that the National NSQF, National Skill Qualification Framework, will be aligned with the National Higher Education Qualification Framework. And it says that there will be a national committee for integrating vocational education. NCIVE, National Committee for Integrating Vocational Education in the country, will soon be established, and in a phased manner within the next decade, the skill education or vocational education will be integrated into higher education, and this national committee will have members from the domain of vocational education, skill education, people from the industry and people from the ministries of Government of India will become part of it and will chalk out the guidelines and modalities for mainstreaming of higher education. So friends, what I would like to emphasize here is that the 21st century India aims at making the country a knowledge superpower. It aims at making the country a skilled capital of the world, a digital India, a skill India, Unnat Bharat. These are our objectives and main aims, so that India becomes a knowledge superpower of the 21st century. It will become a knowledge economy of the 21st century. And India also aims at becoming a Vishwa Guru by promoting Indian knowledge system in the international arena. So on the one hand, we will be promoting foreign universities, best foreign universities to come back to India to have their campuses. And on the other hand, we'll take the Indian knowledge system to the entire world to make India a Vishwa Guru. So these are the standards that have been set before us by the National Education Policy 2020, and I hope that the idea of reimagining vocational education under the National Education Policy 2020 will lead to providing the largest workforce, skilled workforce to the country which we are presently lacking. Though we have the largest youth in the world, but we don't have sufficient number of skilled youths in the country. So the aim of the National Education Policy is to ensure that by integrating vocational education with school education, that is schooling and skilling, and integrating National Skill Qualification Framework with the National Higher Education Qualification Framework, there will be seamless movement of students from school education to vocational education and from vocational education to higher education, and in the process will ensure abundant supply of skilled workforce for the overall economic growth of the country.
So with this, we will come to the conclusion of this session of live counseling. And I hope that you have been able to learn more about vocational education and about all the other tenets of the National Education Policy, which was spoken to We have tried to answer your questions. हमने आपके प्रश्नों का जवाब देने का प्रयास किया है. आप हमें लिखते रहिए. हम इस लाइव काउंसलिंग के माध्यम से आपके जवाब देते रहेंगे. आप ईमेल से भी लिख सकते हैं, मगर this is the best way to do. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank Dr. Shrikant Mohapatra ji for taking this session and giving us the answers to many questions which were bothering us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.